Right now, inside the Emirates Stadium, two of the biggest transfer decisions Arsenal have faced this summer are sitting on a knife edge, and neither one has been resolved. On one side, Newcastle United have just rejected Arsenal's first official offer for Bruno Guimaraes. On the other side, in Madrid, Vinicius Jr is walking back into training at Valdebebas, smiling for the cameras, while behind closed doors, his club is scrambling to put together a new contract offer before he can even consider leaving. Two different countries, two different negotiations, but both of them are happening at exactly the same time, and both of them are shaping what kind of summer Arsenal are about to have. With less than 3 weeks left before the new season begins, there is no more time to waste. Every day without a signed midfielder or a resolved winger situation is a day closer to starting the season short of what this squad needs. Here is what is actually at risk. If Bruno Guimaraes talks stall for much longer, Arsenal lose valuable pre-season time to integrate a new midfielder before competitive football starts. If Vinicius Jr chooses to sign a new contract at Real Madrid, Arsenal's entire attacking strategy for the summer collapses, because right now, almost all of their other business appears to be on hold until his situation is settled. This is not a small subplot. This is the difference between Arsenal walking into the new season with two marquee additions, or walking in with neither. Before I break down exactly what is happening on both fronts, if you want the full picture on every twist in these negotiations, this is exactly the kind of story where subscribing actually matters. I go through every update as it lands, separate confirmed fact from speculation, and give you the analysis without the noise. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay ahead of this. Now let's go through it properly, story by story. The Bruno Guimarães standoff. Let's start with the situation that is furthest along. Bruno Guimarães remains a Newcastle United player. That has not changed, but the gap between Newcastle and Arsenal has now become the central issue of this entire transfer. An account closely following the story reported that Bruno Guimarães is now applying serious pressure on Newcastle United to allow him to join Arsenal. And this pressure has come specifically after Newcastle rejected Arsenal's opening bid for him. That is confirmed. The player himself is pushing. A separate update, relaying information from a trusted transfer insider, laid out both perspectives clearly. From Newcastle's side, they have rejected a formal offer because they believe it sits below their valuation of the player. From Arsenal's side, the belief is that the deal is already being finalised. The insider suggested Arsenal may need to submit one more formal bid, or simply adjust the offer that is already on the table, and noted that there is a difference between a club rejecting a bid with no encouragement at all, and a club rejecting a bid while signalling that it is close. According to that source, this situation falls into the second category. The expectation shared was that Bruno Guimarães ends up an Arsenal player sooner rather than later, with the overall package landing somewhere around £80 million. Now here is where I want to slow down and separate fact from noise, because this is exactly the part of the story that has been misunderstood by a lot of people online. The claim of an official first offer being rejected is confirmed. What is also confirmed is that this rejected bid sat below the £80 million mark, which multiple sources close to the situation have pointed to as the number where an actual breakthrough becomes possible. What is less clean, and this is important, is the debate over what actually counts as direct contact between the two clubs. Before this official bid, there had been several verbal offers floated, starting at around £45 million. These were not offers made directly between Arsenal and Newcastle executives. These were verbal offers put forward through intermediaries, individuals who work on behalf of clubs to test the waters on valuation and to gauge whether a player might be open to a move. This distinction matters because a lot of the criticism directed at Arsenal has been based on the idea that direct contact happened far earlier than it officially did. The truth is more nuanced. Whether an intermediary counts as direct contact depends entirely on your definition. Some would say any employee of a club speaking to another club counts as direct talks. Others would argue an intermediary working informally on a club's behalf does not meet that bar. Officially, direct contact was only made once the recent formal bid was submitted and subsequently rejected. So here is my analysis on this. Arsenal know that Bruno Guimarães is extremely keen to make this move. That desire from the player gives Arsenal something valuable: patience. Unlike Declan Rice in 2023 or the striker signing made in 2025, both of which were treated as absolutely paramount to the squad, Bruno Guimarães does not appear to carry that same level of urgency from Arsenal's side. That allows the club to remain calm in these negotiations rather than being forced into panic bidding. And time itself is working in Arsenal's favour here, whether that was the intention or not. Newcastle are under real financial pressure. If this deal drags on and Newcastle are forced to make a marquee signing of their own without first banking the money from selling Bruno Guimarães, their financial flexibility tightens considerably. That pressure sits entirely on Newcastle's side of the table, not Arsenal's, and it gives Arsenal room to negotiate from a position of composure rather than desperation. The bottom line on this one, as things stand, is that talks are ongoing, no deal has been completed, but the direction of travel points toward an agreement. This is not yet confirmed as a transfer. It remains a negotiation in progress, and viewers should treat it as exactly that until an official announcement is made. The Vinicius Jr. situation, now to the second major storyline, and this one is more complicated, because it involves not one negotiation, but two happening in parallel. Vinicius Jr. remains, as of right now, a Real Madrid player. That has not changed. But the tension between him and his current club has become impossible to ignore. Let me walk through what has actually been reported, because there are multiple layers here and they need to be kept separate. The first piece of information concerns a reported standoff between Vinicius Jr. and Real Madrid. According to a transfer insider, a decisive meeting between the two parties is expected this week. The claim is that Vinicius Jr. is actually willing to lower his financial demands, but he is still insisting on one specific condition: a renewal bonus. Real Madrid, according to this same reporting, are refusing to offer that bonus because they are concerned it would create a damaging knock-on effect throughout the rest of the dressing room. If one player receives a loyalty or renewal bonus of that size, other high-profile squad members could reasonably expect the same treatment, and that is reportedly the sticking point holding this entire negotiation in place. What makes this even more serious is the claim that key figures inside the club are now, for the first time, in favour of selling Vinicius Jr. this month if these talks collapse. That is a notable shift. Jose Mourinho is said to be watching the situation closely, but the final call on any sale or renewal rests with club president Florentino Perez. I want to flag clearly, this entire storyline is reported information from a transfer insider, not an official club statement. There has been no confirmation from Real Madrid themselves that a sale is imminent or that internal figures have shifted their stance. Treat this as credible reporting, but reporting nonetheless, not confirmed fact. Now here is where it gets even more interesting, because a second piece of reporting adds real financial detail to this standoff. Real Madrid have reportedly made a new renewal offer to Vinicius Jr., and this matters because it reopens a negotiation that had been completely stalled for almost a year. The new offer sits at €22 million per year. For context, that is meaningfully higher than what he currently earns, which is reported to be around €17.5 million annually. But it still falls short of what Vinicius Jr. is believed to be seeking, which sources suggest is somewhere around €30 million a year. So let's do the actual analysis here, because the numbers tell their own story. Real Madrid have moved. They have gone from a stalled negotiation to an active offer of €22 million a year. That is not a token gesture. That is a serious increase from his current salary. But there is still a gap of roughly €8 million a year between what has been offered and what is being asked for. In a negotiation this significant, that gap is not small, and it explains exactly why tension remains even after a new offer has been placed on the table. Now, separately from the financial reporting, there is the human element of this story, and it comes from footage Real Madrid themselves posted. Vinicius Jr. was filmed back in training at Valdebebas following his time away with Brazil at the World Cup this summer. He underwent fitness testing and took part in content filmed for the club's own channels. In that footage, he spoke directly to the camera, inviting fans to train with him, and he did so with a visibly relaxed and happy demeanour. Here is my honest read on that moment. Footage like this does not confirm anything about his long-term intentions, but it does complicate the narrative of a player who is desperate to leave. A player in genuine crisis with his club rarely appears that at ease on camera. It does not rule out a departure, but it does suggest that, at least publicly, there is no visible sign of a player pushing for an exit through his own actions or demeanour. Now let's bring in Arsenal's side of this story directly, because there is confirmed movement here too, according to reporting from a source close to the negotiations. For Vinicius Jr., the framing given was that there are only two realistic outcomes, not three. Either Real Madrid keep him by signing him to a new deal, or they sell him. There is no third path being discussed. From Arsenal's perspective, they are not the ones waiting on Real Madrid to open talks about a renewal. They have already made their own offer for the player. That offer has effectively placed the pressure back onto Real Madrid, and the same reporting claims Real Madrid want an answer from Vinicius Jr. himself this week. There is also an important nuance about internal Real Madrid politics buried in this same reporting. Jose Mourinho, it is claimed, wants to keep Vinicius Jr. at any cost. But Florentino Perez has apparently made his own position clear, that the outcome will either be a sale, most likely to Arsenal, or a renewal. And crucially, the timeline suggests Real Madrid are now working on finalising that renewal only after Arsenal's offer arrived, not before it. In other words, Arsenal's interest may be the very thing that forced Real Madrid's hand into finally re-engaging with this contract situation at all. That is a significant detail, and it is worth sitting with for a moment. If accurate, Arsenal have effectively become the catalyst for a negotiation that had been frozen for almost a year. Whether or not the Vinicius Jr. transfer itself ever happens, Arsenal's interest appears to have already changed the shape of his relationship with his current club. Now, what would a Vinicius Jr. signing actually mean for Arsenal beyond the transfer fee itself? According to comments made publicly by a former Arsenal player turned pundit, a move of this magnitude would represent far more than a squad addition. It would be read across the entire Premier League as a statement, a signal that after winning the league last season, Arsenal have no intention of standing still. It would be interpreted as evidence of ambition both on the pitch and commercially, a message that the club intends to build on its title-winning campaign rather than settle into it. I think that framing is accurate, and here is why. Ambitious clubs are not just measured by the trophies they have already won, they are measured by what they do immediately afterward. A move for a player of Vinicius Junior's profile, coming directly off the back of a league title, tells the rest of the division that Arsenal see this as the start of a sustained period of dominance, not a one-off achievement to be protected cautiously. But let's stay grounded in the facts as they currently stand. No transfer has been completed. No player has requested a move publicly. What we have is a stalled renewal now reopened, a financial gap of roughly €8 million a year still unresolved, a decisive meeting reportedly expected this week, and an Arsenal offer that has already been made and is now sitting with Real Madrid awaiting a response. Every part of that is a negotiation in motion, not a confirmed outcome. There is also a wider consequence to this story that deserves its own attention. Arsenal's broader summer transfer strategy appears to be largely dependent on how the Vinicius Jr. situation resolves. Outside of the Bruno Guimaraes pursuit, the rest of Arsenal's business this window seems to be effectively paused, waiting for clarity on the financial commitment required for a player of Vinicius Jr.'s stature. That is a significant strategic reality. It means the outcome of this single negotiation does not just determine one signing, it determines the shape of Arsenal's entire summer. And there is a genuine question worth asking directly, one that has already been raised by people closely following this story. Is Real Madrid's willingness to engage with Arsenal genuine, or is Vinicius Jr. using Arsenal's interest purely as leverage to extract better terms from his current club? Both scenarios remain entirely possible based on what has been reported. What is clear is that Real Madrid's own financial logic works against them the longer this drags on, because a player entering the final stages of his contract without an extension in place naturally sees his market value decline. That pressure is real, and it sits on Real Madrid's side of this negotiation, not Arsenal's. Squad news and management signals. Away from the two headline negotiations, there are two other pieces of confirmed squad news worth breaking down, because they tell us something about how Arsenal's coaching staff are managing the group right now. The first involves Christos Tzolis, who has been relaying comments made to him directly by Mikel Arteta. According to the player, Arteta's message was simple and specific, that he does not want Tzolis to change anything about how he played at Club Brugge. The instruction was to remain himself, to bring the same passion and desire to every game that earned him his move in the first place. Tzolis added his own reflection on that, saying that giving 100% in every duel is something every player and fan can respect, and that doing so consistently earns the support of supporters. My read on this is straightforward. This is a coaching philosophy signal, not a tactical instruction. Arteta is telling a new signing not to overthink the transition into a bigger club, but to trust the identity that made him valuable in the first place. That is a common approach with new arrivals, and it suggests confidence from the coaching staff in what they saw in Tzolis before he signed. The second piece of squad news concerns Jurrien Timber, and this one requires precision, because injury updates are exactly the kind of story that can get exaggerated if not handled carefully. Timber is not expected to feature in Arsenal's upcoming pre-season friendly. He did briefly return to London last week, but that return was for a pre-planned appointment, not for any emergency reason, before he rejoined the rest of the squad. Arsenal have been clear that there has been no setback in his recovery from the groin injury that has affected him for several months. The club remains optimistic that his rehabilitation will be completed in time for the start of the competitive season. Here is the important distinction. This is not a new injury. This is not a setback. This is a continuation of an existing recovery timeline, with the only new information being that he will not be risked in a pre-season fixture. Given that the injury has already persisted for several months, that is a sensible, low-risk decision rather than a concerning one. The framing here should be measured caution, not alarm. Pulling it all together, so where does this actually leave Arsenal with less than 3 weeks to go before the season starts? On the Bruno Guimaraes front, the club has had a formal offer rejected, but the underlying signals point toward a deal that is close rather than one that has broken down. Newcastle's financial situation gives Arsenal room to negotiate patiently, and the player himself is reportedly pushing to make the move happen. On the Vinicius Junior front, this is a genuinely fluid situation with real financial detail behind it. Real Madrid have moved from a stalled contract conversation to an active offer of €22 million a year, still short of the roughly €30 million being sought. Arsenal have already made their own move, and the ball, at least according to current reporting, sits in Real Madrid's court, with a decisive meeting reportedly expected this week. And in the background, the coaching staff continue building trust with new arrivals like Tzolis, while managing Timber's recovery with appropriate caution rather than unnecessary risk. None of these stories are finished. All of them are moving, and that is exactly why this window remains one of the most important stretches of Arsenal's entire summer. I will be tracking every update on both of these negotiations as they land. If you want the full picture, without speculation dressed up as fact, make sure you are subscribed, because this story is far from over.